White on white beef. How do you feel about Vlad?
I like Vlad. Legend. He pretty much invented the space in many ways.
Don't give the white man that much credit.
I mean, he was ahead of the curve on damn near everything in terms of like what YouTube content was going to look like. And he was the first person through the wall, and he took all the shit for it, and now everybody else does all the same shit that he used to do, myself included. So.
Well, again, I don't think Vlad gets shit because of the business model that he created. It's his intent.
Yeah, I mean,
and the outcome
there's
of
a
it.
feel.
Because his intent comes off, I've never met the gentleman, it comes across that he does not give a fuck. He's there for the view, just the view, fuck what happens with the culture. And the outcome tends to be that way as well. So his intent is bad, and his outcome is bad as far as certain situations. I'm not saying got anyone indicted, I'm not being that person, but that's how a lot of people view him.
Yeah. I mean, from knowing Vlad, I know that he probably cares more about the result in terms of his interviews. Like, he's just told me that he's done things that I could never imagine doing, and that I was shocked to hear any person say, in the sense that he told me that he called the fucking police department when he interviewed the baby to make sure that the Walmart situation was a closed case, because he really wanted to ask him about it, and he wanted to be able to say definitively like that this was a closed case or whatever. When I heard him say that, I was like, oh, that's a step that I never would have thought of in terms of making sure that his interview didn't.
Let's hypothetically talk. And I promise this has nothing to do with Vlad saying poor things about me or any fake back and forth we've ever had. Do you think his intent was to make sure the baby was good and that case was closed, or he'd been called that so much that he can bring up in another interview to say, hey, do you know that I did this? Hey, do you know this? Do you know this? Hey, do you know that? Like, is he
going down a rabbit hole?
Yeah, is he now just starting to do that because he's been called this so much?
But
And he's a smart dude
We're
and a
all
strategic
products
dude.
of the criticism that we've taken over the years.
100%.
Like, for sure, the worst shit I ever read about myself on Twitter is like stuff that really I probably internalized, and it made me think twice about what I was putting out there into the world.
Oh, no,
you know?
there's a lot of hate I've gotten that I've taken like, they right.
Yeah, if you can't take
they're definitely
something
right.
from them,
No, but
your biggest hater, then you're probably.
But I'm
deluding
saying, was
yourself,
it only for him going, damn, maybe I should look out for these artists and this culture that I'm profiting
I'll
off
give
of?
you another
Or do you
example.
think he's just doing it to say now, hey, look at me, I did this?
Vlad did a banger Tax Stone interview like a couple days before he got locked up, and never put it out.
I've heard that, yeah.
You know, like that kind of stuff. Like I think he does put people's freedom above you know his own personal
Let
interests.
me ask you a question, and I hope that, shout out to Tax, and I hope that trial goes amazing. No matter the result of that entire situation, what do we think Vlad's going to do?
Ask people about it on the podcast.
No, I think he's going to put it out.
Oh, after the fact? Maybe.
And I think
6 years later?
I think he's holding something that he knows now because he's a smart businessman. He was not holding that for some moral reasons.
But I interviewed Tax like that same week, so I don't think that Tax was saying anything incriminating. Because when I asked him about that situation, he didn't say
No,
shit.
no,
Not gonna
that's
say nothing incriminating.
Adam. That's my point. He's not holding that for moral reasons, and I'm not mad at him for that. He's holding that because he knows whenever that trial happens, he has a tax interview. That's a business move. That's not a moral move, and I'm not mad at Tax for that. I'm sorry, Vlad for that. Yeah, of course you're gonna hold that.
One thing
Don't say that's some like moral
But
cultural
if he had
shit.
dropped it at the time, it would have been getting views
Yeah.
all throughout this. Whereas if he drops it 6 years after Tax gets popped, I mean, is anyone going to even care? I mean, not as
Are
much
you
as.
crazy?
Yeah, but if
When
he had
that
dropped
trial
it back
starts,
then.
that-
But why? But people don't want to watch an old interview.
Yep. Vlad's whole platform is
yeah, watch
flashbacks.
it.
I have some great old interviews, and I'm pretty sure if I dropped them, that nobody would care because the world has just moved on.
One thing that I can say about Vlad, dealing with him myself, the first thing he told me is, if you don't like nothing that you said in here, let me know. I'll take that shit out. And I thought that was cool because I'm hearing the theories and I'm like, okay, he gonna try to trip me out and say some shit. And a lot of times, bro, you go places, these people are not media trained. You feel me? They go say some bullshit and then they go, hey, I said some fucked up shit. Can you take it out? How many times do you think that he hears that shit? You know what I'm saying? And then after that is, oh, it's fuck you because now you making me look bad. Like, nah, nigga, you made yourself look bad. If this nigga the police, why the fuck are you even going over there?
Up
I
until
always say that. First
up until this specific podcast, the only thing I've really talked about with Vlad is I feel he takes advantage of younger kids that don't realize what they're saying. They just see a huge platform and they trying to get out of the circumstance they're in, and that's one of the biggest platforms ever. And I think it's exploited to some degree. I'm not mad at Vlad talking to grown men, and if they want to criminate themselves, that's on them. That's the only thing I've ever said. And then Vlad, which we know, this is a fact, is one of the most sensitive people ever. He created in his head that I've just been shitting on Vlad. That's the only thing I've said for real about Vlad. And then he called me unintelligent. And when you start attacking, like, all right, now you're doing something. I was just talking about your platform. Now you're trying to say I'm
now you're
stupid.
saying you can't read.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you can say that about.
I know my ABCs.
You can say that about a
and
lot
my
of
1, 2,
people.
3s.
You know, like clearly, like Orlando Brown is not of sound mind, and he'll
course
get
not.
a million interviews from everybody. It's the same shit. Our own people will do it to us. Everybody will do that. Because right now, I feel like everybody's just looking for that click.
Absolutely.
They want that revenue and shit like that too. So we can't just say, "Oh, Vlad is the only one doing it." Nah,
Oh, we were going to do the Kanye interview.
that's what I'm saying. And then even before, people gave you a lot of slack for the Boot Gang interview. They like, why did Adam? You know what I'm saying?
Well, that's an interview
him
that
doing
wouldn't have came out if it wasn't live. And it wouldn't even happened if it weren't live.
But the argument was like, you knew that he was off of something. You feel me? But you're not thinking about the shit
I
like that.
beg people to watch the full context of that interview so you could see me begging him to not come on camera.
But the other platforms doing it, Theory, I don't know if I really rock with. Because if you want to be the biggest platform, you are the face of it. And now you need to take the heat for everything below you. Of course, there's a
believe that.
million platforms that do what Vlad does. No, I'm not talking about them because Vlad is the biggest one and he's the face of it. So he has to take the heat for everyone else that does it. I'm not going to sit here and condemn every other YouTube platform. Because why? Because why?
I just think that even
He's the biggest one.
But the thing you said about him, you know, sort of baiting young kids into incriminating
I didn't say
themselves.
baiting.
I mean, that even if that's true, that's such a microscopic part of like what his interviews are. Like his interviews aren't even like mostly rappers, I would say at this point. You know, he interview and like the percentage of like really young dudes that Vlad interviews is like really small.
I go to see Boozy.
Yeah.
I love Boosie.
Whenever I look at it, there's a bunch of old heads I never
Does
heard of half
Boosie
the
do
time.
interviews with anybody else? I only see him on
Very
I only
infrequently.
see him on
But him and
Vlad.
Vlad have a financial relationship, you know?
Oh, okay.
Clearly.
So I think it makes sense for him to kind
Listen.
of focus on Vlad.
I've loved Yayo on his platform. I've watched it.
Yeah.
Like I don't not watch certain Vlad stuff, but there was a time that was building that platform that was that type of shit. It's certainly changed, which is cool. But again, I think a lot of that had to do with the flack he was getting. And cool, you get criticism, change it. But we can't pretend like that wasn't a thing at one point.
I feel like Vlad pisses a lot of people off on a personal level, and then they kind of judge the platform as a result. Or even like the way he conducts his interviews. Sometimes, yes, it can feel a little bit like coppish, you know? It kind of feels like he's getting the entirety of the information
Well,
on
that's
a
the point.
story.
The point of an interview is pretty much what police do. So of
Yeah.
course it's going to come across that way.
But like he does things in interviews that I don't necessarily do, where he'll like actually have like an entire outline of your whole life and ask you about each thing step by step.
Got
Which
your Wikipedia page.
it's actually very good, like in terms of like breaking down somebody's life, but it does come across a certain way.
It's
too.
interrogation.
Yeah.
So it
I just think
feels
it's
like
funny that
interrogation.
AD and Mo watching us have white on white crime.
I love it.
Vlad.
Yeah, I'm about to say this is what I wanted. That's why I asked Vlad.
I will do you
Adam the
proud.
question.
But yeah, no, I don't have anything personal with that. I just think it's a conversation.
Right.
That's all. Because I let that whole unintelligent shit fly and just minding my business.
But it's interesting that you're still connected to your prior boss's ops. You're not going to just change your attitude. Have you linked
Why-
up with
why
any
would-
of his ops?
No, I don't. But that's just weird to me to even begin with. Like, and even Vlad said that in that same thing. Like, oh, you know, he could have done an interview with me had he not done that. I don't want to do an interview. I promise you, if Vlad hit me at any point in my
What are
entire
you
life,
hiding, Rory?
Vlad will find it.
Definitely.
I would like. It's funny someone saying I would never do an interview with you when you would never accept an interview. Like,
You
I'm
don't
not
think it would be
asking-
good for the podcast overall? Couldn't hurt, right?
We don't base our entire podcast off. What
So Weedy could have sold 10,000 or 10 times as many records if she had gone on Vlad.
Yeah,
you believe that?
Probably not, but
You
maybe
really
more.
You don't
and,
believe that.
And
shit.
because that's your man, you let him get that off.
I didn't
That was
call
a
him out on
crazy
it.
tweet.
That was probably a
sick.
bad tweet. Yeah,
that was sick.
Fair.
10 times as
like,
much. Yeah.
That's crazy.
Maybe a small boost.
How much percentage do you think Vlad's is male? The percentage of his demographic.
Probably similar to ours, like 80,
Same.
85%.
Ours is
yeah.
is
That's
high-
a, that's
high
a
male
very
as
good
well.
point. Yeah,
So we were all gonna watch the Sweetie interview and be like, "Yo,
I gotta peep that
gotta
tape.
cop
I
that."
gotta hear that album.
Nah.
How many views is the clip getting? Where it's like
She would do views. Don't get me wrong. We
Vlad
would
asked
look at her
Sweetie
face and
about
talk.
fucking Lil Baby and members of the Migos versus the clip that Sweetie talks about her new album.
Right.
I'm probably not going to click.
I'm clicking
the
on
one
the
about
first
the
one.
album. Yeah, the first one.
And even
sounds
though I
pretty
know
good, though.
Sweetie probably won't go talk about Baby, Migos, and all that, and I respect her for it.
You want to see how she turns it down.
You think if she did that, all of Vlad's audience would have been like, well, let me hear the bars. Nah. They're not listening to the album.
But I would say that, it would have been good promotion. Probably not the kind of promotion that she wants, though, at this point. Because he would have been really asking her all the personal shit that she probably... But she did put out a song, like, directly addressing it around that time as well.
No matter what, it would be good promotion. I'm not saying it would direct to sales. Just be good promotion.
Yeah.
Yo, we just hit 400,000 subscribers right here on the Clips channel. So if you want to help us out, click subscribe, get us to 500K. Yeah.